Welcome to Quiet Universe, where reality and imagination blend, and the boundaries of our deepest thoughts are only a whisper away. Today, we'll be diving into a place you visited every night, though you might not remember. A place where dreams live, where hopes unfold, but also where they can be stolen. Have you ever felt like a part of your dream slipped away? Like an idea or an ambition was once so close, only to fade into the shadows? Maybe it wasn't just forgotten. Maybe it was taken. In this episode, we explore the mysterious figure that haunts the dreamscape, the dream thief. Who is this enigmatic being? Where does it come from? And more importantly, what drives it to steal the dreams we hold so dear? It might be more than just a creature from a nightmare. It could be the very embodiment of what we fear most. The loss of creativity, of hope, of identity itself. But what if I told you that the dream thief isn't just something lurking in the shadows of our sleep? It's closer than you think. Let's unravel the mysteries together. As always, settle in, open your mind, and journey with me into the depths of the quiet universe, where even your dreams aren't safe. The concept of the dream thief evokes a range of ideas depending on the context. It could be interpreted as a mythological figure, a character in literature, or even a metaphor for the unconscious mind. In many interpretations, a dream thief is a figure or force that intrudes into the deepest, most personal spaces of a person's psyche, stealing, altering, or corrupting their dreams, which could be symbolic of their desires, memories, or inner thoughts. Imagine a world where dreams are not merely figments of the imagination but real, tangible places, a vast network of realms where people's innermost secrets and wishes manifest. In this world, the dream thief is an entity capable of slipping into these dream worlds, lurking in the subconscious, and silently siphoning away not only dreams, but also the essence of hope, creativity, and even the potential futures tied to those dreams. What would drive such a thief? Perhaps the dream thief is a being trapped between worlds, feeding on the vibrant and ethereal energy of dreams to sustain itself. Or maybe it was once human, a powerful dreamwalker who lost their way, consumed by the temptation to manipulate and control the fabric of other people's subconscious minds. This hunger for control leads to a predatory existence, drifting from one dream to another, gradually draining the life force from those who dream. From a metaphorical perspective, the idea of a dream thief could reflect real-world anxieties, how stress, fear, or outside forces, like societal pressures, rob individuals of their dreams and aspirations. In this sense, the dream thief represents the gradual erosion of hope, stealing away the potential of what could be and leaving in its wake a void where once there was passion or ambition. In literature or storytelling, such a character could serve as the ultimate antagonist, the unseen force that turns people's lives upside down by distorting their reality, slowly erasing their sense of self. The protagonist, in contrast, might be someone who defies the dream thief, seeking to reclaim not just their own dreams, but those stolen from others, leading to a battle that spans across both waking and dream worlds. Alternatively, the dream thief could also be an anti-hero. Perhaps they started with noble intentions, stealing dreams to relieve people of their worst nightmares, only to find themselves unable to stop, crossing moral boundaries they never intended to breach. This version of the dream thief plays with moral ambiguity, raising questions about the ethics of tampering with such an intimate part of another person's existence. In other interpretations, the dream thief might not always be malicious. Instead, they could represent the bittersweet reality that dreams, like all things, can fade. They may be a neutral force, balancing the creative and destructive aspects of the subconscious mind, ensuring that not all dreams last forever, forcing individuals to confront what they truly value and what they can let go of. The dream thief is the kind of figure that exists on the border between reality and imagination, almost like a shadow that slips between the cracks of consciousness. It's not a physical being you can touch or see, but rather something that takes shape in the spaces where dreams live, those vast, surreal landscapes that are both intensely personal and utterly chaotic. In some ways, the dream thief could be described as an idea, a force that embodies the way our deepest aspirations, fears, and fantasies can be taken from us without us even realizing it. But it's more than that. It has an eerie kind of presence, as though it knows every secret you try to keep hidden from yourself, waiting for the moment when you're most vulnerable. Where it comes from is harder to pin down. It's not from a specific place or time, but it's always been there, lingering at the edges of human consciousness. You could trace its origins back to ancient stories, myths and legends that speak of spirits or beings who meddle with dreams, twisting them or stealing them away. Maybe it's a modern version of those ancient fears, adapted to the complexities of the mind today. In some interpretations, the dream thief is born from the collective unease we all share, the gnawing feeling that even the most intimate parts of ourselves, our dreams, aren't entirely safe. Maybe it exists because we need it to explain why our ambitions falter or our hopes feel out of reach. It's the manifestation of doubt, fear, or even the unavoidable loss that comes with time. On a more human level, the dream thief might represent the struggles we all face. Life has a way of robbing people of their dreams, often quietly, without any dramatic confrontation. It's like waking up one day and realizing you've lost touch with the person you thought you'd become, and you can't even pinpoint when or how it happened. That's what the dream thief does. It slips in unnoticed, night after night, and takes the pieces of us that we thought were permanent. It's the slow erosion of what we hold dear, a quiet thief that makes off with the dreams we were too busy to nurture or too scared to chase. In a way, the dream thief feels less like a villain and more like a reflection of the human condition. It's not evil, just relentless, indifferent to the pain it causes. It exists because dreams are fragile things, prone to being lost or stolen. Its origins are woven into the very fabric of what it means to dream at all. Because as long as there are dreams, there will always be something trying to take them away. Maybe the dream thief isn't born from some distant nightmare realm, but from within each of us, from the part that's afraid of failing or changing or even succeeding. It's a part of us we don't often confront, the part that lets go of dreams without a fight. But it's not invincible. Just as it has the power to steal, we have the power to reclaim. The dream thief may be an ancient, persistent force, but it thrives on the dreams that are left undefended. In the end, the struggle isn't really with the dream thief at all. It's with ourselves, and whether or not we're willing to protect the things that matter most. The motivation behind the dream thief's actions is not as simple as malice or some straightforward need. It doesn't steal dreams out of cruelty or for pure survival, though on the surface, that's how it might seem. There's a complexity to its purpose, a layered intent that reflects something deeper. If anything, the dream thief operates out of a need that goes beyond hunger or malevolence. It's driven by an emptiness, an insatiable longing that can't be easily satisfied. Stealing dreams isn't just about taking, it's about filling a void that can never really be filled. It could be that the dream thief was once something different, something that once had dreams of its own but lost them along the way. Maybe it was a being or a force that was deprived of what makes life meaningful, what gives purpose. It now moves through the dream world, not to destroy, but to claim pieces of what it feels it can never have for itself. There's almost a tragic sense to it, as if it's constantly trying to reclaim something long lost, something that was once taken from it. In that way, the dream thief is less of a villain and more of a figure driven by deep, unhealed wounds, chasing after a feeling of completeness that remains just out of reach. When it takes dreams, it doesn't do so with glee or sadistic pleasure. It doesn't bask in the suffering it causes. Instead, there's a quiet desperation to it, a kind of resigned compulsion. The act of stealing dreams is its way of reaching for a semblance of meaning. Dreams, after all, are not just abstract thoughts. They're the distilled essence of hope, ambition, creativity, and fear. They contain the potential of what could be, the possibilities of a life yet to unfold. By stealing them, the dream thief isn't just robbing people of their nightly fantasies. It's collecting fragments of potential, as if trying to assemble something whole from the scattered pieces of others' lives. This makes its motivations even more human. It's easy to see a reflection of our own deepest desires in the dream thief. How many times have people taken shortcuts to success, or tried to live through someone else's achievements, out of a sense of lacking something essential? It's that same drive that propels the dream thief, an endless search to fill an absence it can't fully understand. It wants dreams because dreams represent what it's missing, a future, a sense of self, a direction. There's no malice behind its actions, but rather a kind of bittersweet longing. But there's another layer too. Stealing dreams might be the only way the dream thief knows how to connect to the world. It exists in a space where it can't create its own dreams, where its own thoughts are barren and empty. So it reaches out, not necessarily to harm, but to feel something, anything. By taking a part of someone else's dream, the dream thief might be trying to live vicariously through them, to experience the thrill of dreaming, even if it's secondhand. It's the closest it can get to feeling alive, to feeling human. There's a tragic irony in that. By stealing dreams, it's trying to find a life, even as it diminishes the lives of those it takes from. So the motivation is layered, a mix of necessity, longing, and a kind of quiet despair. It's not evil in the traditional sense, but it's certainly a force of loss, perpetually reaching for something it can never truly have. It's not satisfied, and it never will be, because dreams are not things that can be stolen and made your own. They belong to the dreamer, tied to their deepest emotions and experiences. The dream thief is doomed to a cycle of taking, yet never being fulfilled. It's a sad, relentless existence, one that mirrors the human struggle for meaning in a world that can often feel devoid of it. It keeps stealing, not because it enjoys the act, but because it knows no other way to survive. The dream thief doesn't choose its victims in the way we might expect. It's not calculating or methodical, not combing through dreamers with a specific agenda in mind. Instead, its process feels more instinctual, almost as if it's drawn to certain people rather than selecting them. It's like it can sense when a person's dreams are ripe for the taking, when they are at a point where their dreams are vulnerable, exposed, maybe even neglected. The dream thief is more of a predator in the way it operates, moving through the world of sleep, guided by an unseen force that pulls it toward those whose dreams have reached a certain fragility. It's not necessarily after the most elaborate or fantastical dreams. Sometimes the simplest dreams, those that quietly shape a person's sense of self, their identity, their future, are the most enticing. People who are caught in the space between hope and uncertainty, those who are struggling with the weight of their own expectations, seem to draw the dream thief in like a magnet. It's almost as if it can feel the tension within them, that subtle shift when dreams become harder to hold on to. Those whose dreams are still bright and vivid, but slipping from their grasp, are the ones most at risk. Maybe it's because, in that moment of fragility, dreams become easier to take, like fruit that's just about to fall from the branch. But it's not just about weakness. The dream thief is also drawn to the richness of the dream itself. Some people dream with such intensity, with such creativity, that their dreams carry a kind of weight, a fullness that makes them irresistible. These are the dreamers who are deeply connected to their inner world, who live with one foot in reality and one foot in the realms of imagination. Their dreams are filled with the color, the complexity, the kind of life that the dream thief craves. It doesn't matter whether the dream is happy or tragic, hopeful or filled with dread. What matters is that it's alive, pulsing with energy and possibility. Those are the dreams that call out to the dream thief, not with words, but with a silent kind of yearning. There's also something about the unspoken fears and doubts that make certain dreams more appealing. People who are conflicted, who are running from their own dreams because they're too scared to chase them, seem to invite the dream thief in. It's almost as if, by ignoring or avoiding their own dreams, they leave them exposed, vulnerable to being taken. The dream thief doesn't have to fight to steal these dreams. It's more like it's picking up something that's been abandoned, left on the side of the road. There's a kind of tragic irony in this. The very dreams people are too afraid to pursue are the ones that slip away first, taken by a force they never even knew existed. In some cases, the dream thief seems to be drawn to those who are already losing themselves, those who have forgotten what it means to dream at all. These are the people who go through life in a kind of numbness, too overwhelmed by the day-to-day struggles to remember what they once hoped for. Their dreams are dim, barely there, like a candle that's almost burned out. The dream thief doesn't choose them because it's easy. It's more like it's drawn to the last remnants of what they once were. It's almost as if, by taking those final dreams, it's putting them out of their misery, removing the last flicker of something that was already fading. Yet, even with all this, the choice isn't entirely rational. The dream thief operates on instinct more than reason. It doesn't overthink or strategize. It follows a pull, a need, as if the dreams themselves are guiding it. It's not always about the strength or weakness of the dreamer, or the vividness of the dream itself. Sometimes, the dream thief is simply drawn to a dream because it's there, because it can be taken. It doesn't fully understand why it's drawn to one person over another, just as we don't always understand why certain dreams resonate with us long after we've woken up. In the end, the dream thief's choice is a reflection of the nature of dreams themselves, fleeting, unpredictable, often disappearing without explanation. Its choices are as much about the dreamer as they are about the dream itself, shaped by the delicate balance between hope, fear, creativity, and neglect. It's a force that moves through the night, choosing not with malice, but with a kind of tragic inevitability, drawn to the places where dreams are most fragile, most alive, and most easily lost. The dream thief is aware of the effect it has on its victims, but it's not something that weighs heavily on its conscience. It understands in a detached way that when it takes someone's dream, there's a loss. Something vital is stripped away. People wake up feeling hollow, as if a part of them has been quietly taken in the night. The dream thief knows this, but it's not moved by sympathy or guilt. It's not that it's cruel or indifferent. It's more like it operates on a different plane of emotion, one where the consequences of its actions don't quite register in the same way they would for a human being. It sees the effects like someone watching a distant storm, aware of the destruction but feeling none of the weight of it. It can sense the confusion in the dreamer, the way they struggle to remember what was once clear, the way their ambitions or hopes seem just a little further out of reach. It might even notice how the stolen dream leaves an imprint, a shadow, as if something has been erased from their mind, but the memory of it lingers like a faded photograph. Yet, this awareness doesn't evoke any sense of responsibility. The dream thief moves on, drifting from one mind to the next, because to it, this is simply how things are. It's as natural to it as breathing is to us. There's a strange, almost tragic irony in how the dream thief perceives its own actions. While it understands that taking a dream can shift the course of someone's life, dull their spark, or even leave them feeling lost, it doesn't experience regret in the way we do. Regret requires a connection to the consequences, a deeper understanding of the harm caused, and the dream thief exists outside of that emotional space. It's not that it's cold-hearted or malicious, it simply operates in a way that's disconnected from the human experience. It knows that when it steals a dream, it's stealing more than just a fleeting thought. It's taking a piece of someone's soul, their potential, their deepest desires. But this knowledge doesn't burden it. To the dream thief, the act of taking is more about necessity, survival, or maybe even an unconscious compulsion. It feels drawn to dreams like a moth to light, and once it's taken what it needs, it moves on without looking back. There's no lingering contemplation, no sleepless nights haunted by the damage left behind. In a sense, the impact on its victims is just a side effect of something larger, something it doesn't fully control or perhaps doesn't want to control. The dream thief is aware, but that awareness doesn't stir any emotion within it. It exists in the same way a force of nature exists, neither good nor evil, just inevitable. The closest the dream thief comes to feeling something might be in the fleeting moments after a dream is taken, when it lingers just long enough to sense the absence it's left behind. There's no triumph in that moment, no satisfaction in seeing its victims struggle to grasp what's missing. But there is a quiet acknowledgement, a recognition that its presence has changed something fundamental in the person it's left behind. It's aware of the ripple it creates, the way someone's life can shift course after a stolen dream, but it doesn't stay to watch the full aftermath. It's like a thief who never sticks around to see what happens once the heist is done. There's no attachment to the act, no desire to witness the pain or confusion it causes. Ultimately, the dream thief is aware, but in a way that feels distant, almost clinical. It knows it leaves people with a sense of loss, that it steals more than just dreams. It takes pieces of what makes people who they are. But to the dream thief, this is just the nature of its existence. It's not about malice or intent. It's about the relentless cycle of taking and moving on, without the burden of guilt or the need to justify its actions. In its world, the impact is real, but it's just part of the inevitable process. And in that detachment, the dream thief continues its quiet, unnoticed journey through the minds of dreamers, leaving behind nothing but empty spaces where once there was hope. Nightmares are not immune to the dream thief's grasp. In fact, it can take them just as easily as it steals positive dreams. But its relationship with nightmares is a bit more complex than with the lighter, more hopeful dreams. A nightmare, after all, is still a deeply personal experience. It's just as vivid, just as emotionally charged as any dream of happiness or ambition. The dream thief doesn't discriminate between the beauty of a hopeful vision and the terror of a haunting nightmare. To it, both are pieces of a dreamer's psyche. Both carry weight and substance that it craves. When it takes a nightmare, there's almost a sense of relief in the victim, a fleeting moment where the terror vanishes, leaving behind a strange, hollow peace. But that emptiness isn't a real comfort. It's more like the absence of something familiar. For those plagued by recurring nightmares, the sudden disappearance might feel like an unspoken loss, like waking up from a fight with shadows only to find those shadows have been quietly stolen away. In the moment, it might feel like a gift, like a burden has been lifted, but deep down, there's an unsettling feeling that something integral has been erased. Even nightmares, with all their darkness and fear, are still part of the dreamer's mind. They still carry meaning, sometimes representing the unresolved anxieties or fears buried deep within. For the dream thief, nightmares offer something different from the typical bright dreams of hope and wonder. They're more raw, more intense, often charged with a kind of emotional energy that's as rich and complex as any joyful dream. A nightmare is tangled up in the darker side of a person's mind, the unspoken fears, the suppressed thoughts, and for that reason, they have a particular weight that the dream thief finds just as alluring. It doesn't shy away from these darker dreams. If anything, they might hold a strange fascination for it. There's something powerful about fear, about the way it grips the dreamer and wraps itself around their mind. But stealing a nightmare doesn't always bring the same satisfaction to the dream thief. It's not like it takes pleasure in the terror it removes, nor does it relish the idea of easing someone's fears. Rather, the act of taking nightmares feels more like part of its purpose, as if it's drawn to them in the same way it's drawn to any other dream, driven by a need to absorb the emotional energy, whether it's light or dark. There's no distinction in its mind between what is positive and what is frightening. Both are dreams. Both are pieces of the dreamer's consciousness. Both feed the same hunger. For the dreamer, losing a nightmare might seem like a blessing at first. Who wouldn't want to be free of those night terrors that grip the mind in sleep, making rest impossible? But over time, the absence of nightmares can leave a strange kind of gap. Nightmares, as terrifying as they are, serve a purpose. They force the dreamer to confront their inner fears, to wrestle with the things they might not want to face in waking life. When a nightmare is stolen, that process is interrupted. The fear might disappear from the dream, but it doesn't vanish from the dreamer's life. Instead, it lingers somewhere in the back of the mind, unresolved, festering in the shadows where the dreamer can no longer confront it head-on. In a way, the stealing of nightmares is as much a loss as the stealing of any other dream. It's not about whether the dream is positive or negative. It's about the removal of something deeply personal, something tied to the dreamer's inner world. Nightmares, no matter how terrifying, are still part of the subconscious landscape. And when the dream thief takes them, it's not offering peace or solace. It's just removing another layer of what makes the dreamer who they are. The fears don't disappear. They just lose their form, their clarity. The dreamer wakes up without the fear gripping their chest, but somewhere, deep down, they know something important is missing. In the end, nightmares hold as much value to the dream thief as any other dream. They're infused with the raw emotions of the dreamer, charged with meaning, and laced with the hidden corners of the mind. Whether it's a beautiful vision of hope or a dark plunge into terror, the dream thief can take it all. And when it does, the dreamer is left wondering what exactly has been taken from them, and whether, in the absence of their fears, they are truly free or more lost than before. The dream thief's ultimate goal isn't as clear-cut as power or control. It operates in a space far more abstract than those typical desires. There's a sense that even the dream thief itself isn't fully aware of what it's seeking. It's not driven by an ambition to dominate or manipulate the lives of those whose dreams it steals. In fact, there's a kind of indifference to the power it could wield over others, as if it's not interested in controlling the dreamers or bending them to its will. What it's after is more elusive, more personal. It's almost as if the dream thief is chasing something it's lost, something it can't quite remember, and stealing dreams is its way of trying to fill that void. There's a longing in the way it moves through the dream world, a hunger that seems deeper than just the need for sustenance. Each dream it takes is like a fleeting attempt to grasp at something beyond its reach, a piece of itself that it can no longer find. It's not about redemption in a traditional sense, though. The dream thief isn't looking to make amends or right some cosmic wrong. Instead, it feels more like it's searching for a way to become whole again, as if each dream it absorbs is a small fragment of something larger that it once was. Maybe it was once connected to the dream world in a different way, more intertwined with the dreamers themselves, and now it's forever trying to reclaim that lost connection. At times, its actions suggest a deeper desire for freedom, not from some external force, but from its own existence. The act of stealing dreams doesn't seem to bring it any closer to satisfaction. If anything, it feels like an endless cycle, one that traps the dream thief as much as its victims. There's no joy in what it does, no satisfaction that comes with each stolen dream. Instead, there's an almost painful repetition, as if it's locked in a pattern it can't escape. The more dreams it takes, the further away its true goal seems to slip. And maybe that's the tragedy of the dream thief. It's stuck in a loop of searching without ever truly understanding what it's searching for. It's possible that what the dream thief really wants is to stop, to no longer be this wandering force, constantly consuming the essence of others. But it doesn't know how. The dreams it takes don't fulfill whatever need drives it, and yet, it can't seem to stop reaching for them. There's no sense of power in its actions, no control over its own fate. It moves with a kind of desperation, though it might not even realize it. Each dream is an attempt to fill the emptiness inside it, but the more it takes, the more hollow it becomes. If there's any freedom to be found, it's elusive, just like the dreams themselves, always just out of reach. What the dream thief is chasing might be something as simple, yet profound, as a sense of belonging. It's almost as if it's disconnected from everything, from the world of dreamers and from itself. Each dream it steals could be a way of trying to reconnect, to feel something again, to find its place in a world that it can only exist in as an outsider. But no dream, no matter how vivid or rich, can give it what it's truly looking for. It can take and take, but there's never enough to make it feel whole again. The very thing it's seeking might not even exist anymore. Maybe it never did. And so it continues, driven by a need it doesn't understand, looking for answers in the minds of others because it can't find them within itself. In the end, the dream thief's ultimate goal is not power, control, or even redemption. It's searching for something far more intangible, a way to become complete, to find the missing pieces of itself that it lost long ago. But the tragedy is that it may never find what it's looking for, because the dreams it steals can't offer what it truly needs. They are fleeting, fragile, and ultimately not its own. And so, the dream thief remains trapped, wandering through the dreams of others, forever searching, forever unfulfilled. The dream thief's origins are shrouded in a kind of mist, as if its story has been buried under centuries of forgotten whispers. There's no single myth or legend that can fully explain where it came from, but there are fragments scattered across different cultures, suggesting that the entity has been around for much longer than anyone realizes. Some believe that the dream thief was once a being of pure light, something connected to the very essence of dreams themselves. In those ancient times, it wasn't a thief at all but a guardian, a protector of dreams, tasked with nurturing the hopes and desires of those who slept. But somewhere along the way, something went wrong. Perhaps it was a betrayal, or maybe it was the weight of carrying so many dreams that began to warp its once pure nature. There's an old story hidden in the margins of a crumbling manuscript that speaks of a being who once had the power to shape dreams, to guide dreamers through their subconscious and help them find their way. It was said that this being was loved by dreamers, revered as a kind of silent companion in their most vulnerable moments. But in that same story, there's a tragedy, a moment where this being became lost, trapped in the very dreams it was meant to protect. Some say it was the result of hubris, that the being tried to shape too much, to control too many dreams at once, and in doing so, it broke something fundamental within itself. Others whisper of darker forces, of a betrayal by those who envied the being's power, who tricked it into a dream from which it could never wake. In that endless dream, it became twisted, no longer able to guide but only to take. It began to consume the dreams it once nurtured, feeding off them in a desperate attempt to find its way back to what it once was. But the more it took, the more lost it became. There are other versions of the story, too, woven into the myths of various ancient cultures. In some, the dream thief was once immortal, someone who loved dreams so much they sought to live in them forever. According to one legend, this mortal made a bargain with the gods, asking for the ability to enter dreams at will. But the price was high. They were granted their wish, but at the cost of never being able to return to the waking world. Over time, the joy of exploring dreams turned into a kind of prison, as they found themselves unable to escape the boundaries of others' minds. Trapped in the endless dreams of others, they began to steal, first out of curiosity, then out of necessity, and finally, out of a deep, aching need for something they couldn't name. There's another tale, even older, that suggests the dream thief wasn't always alone. Some say it was part of a pair, two beings that were meant to balance each other. One who guarded the light of dreams, and one who watched over the darkness of nightmares. Together, they maintained the equilibrium of the dream world. But something happened. an event so catastrophic that it tore the two apart. The being that became the dream thief was left alone, broken, and incomplete. In its grief, it began to steal dreams, hoping that each one would bring it closer to the other half it had lost. But no dream, no matter how beautiful or terrifying, could bridge the gap, and so it continued to take, hoping that somewhere in the dreams of others, it might find a reflection of the part of itself that was missing. Whatever the true origin, there's a thread of tragedy that runs through every version of the story. The dream thief wasn't always what it is now. It began as something else, something purer, more connected to the dreamers it now haunts. Whether it was a divine being cast down, a mortal cursed by their own desires, or part of a greater whole torn apart by fate, the result is the same. It became lost, and in that loss, it began to take. Each dream it steals is a grasp at its own identity, an attempt to piece together a history that it can no longer remember. But no matter how many dreams it gathers, the answer remains elusive, just out of reach. In the end, the dream thief's origin is one of isolation, of a being once tied to dreams in a way that was meant to be benevolent, even sacred. But something, whether it was a betrayal, a curse, or simply the passage of time, turned it into the entity it is now. And so it continues, drifting through the dreams of others, forever searching for the answer to a question it can't even remember asking. Whatever it was that set it on this path is long gone, but the echoes of that tragedy still linger in every dream it steals, every mind it touches, leaving behind only shadows of the being it once was. When the dream thief steals a dream, it's not just the fleeting images or sensations that disappear from a person's mind. It's something deeper, something more intimate. Dreams are not just illusions of sleep. They are the subconscious landscapes where hopes, fears, and longings intertwine. For those whose dreams are stolen, it's as if a part of their soul has been taken. They wake with a feeling they can't quite name, a hollowness that lingers in the corners of their thoughts. At first, it's subtle, an unease that whispers at the edges of consciousness. The dream itself is forgotten, wiped clean from memory, but the emotions it stirred are gone too. The excitement, the joy, even the terror that dreams evoke, none of it remains. As days pass, the stolen dream leaves a deeper mark. People begin to feel a strange disconnection, as if they're moving through life without the invisible thread that ties them to their desires and ambitions. It's not that they lose their will to live, but the spark that once pushed them to aspire, to hope, to imagine, dims. They go through routines, they laugh, they cry, but there's a strange flatness to everything. The stolen dream pulls at their inner world like a missing piece of a puzzle, and they feel it, even if they can't articulate what's wrong. Conversations become hollow, passions wane, and even the most cherished memories lose their vibrancy, as if the thief has not only stolen one dream but somehow dampened all the colors in their life. What's worse is that they can't explain it to anyone. How do you tell someone that something is missing from within you? Something you don't even remember having. Friends might notice a change, a distant look, a sudden quietness, but it's not the kind of thing that can be fixed with concern or comfort. The person themselves doesn't know what's gone. They just feel it in the dead of night, in those moments when sleep is near but not quite there, when the mind used to drift freely into the realm of possibility. Now, that space is empty. No dreams come to offer solace or excitement or even confusion. It's as if the night has become a blank, a void that stretches endlessly, mirroring the emptiness they feel inside. The real tragedy, though, is the slow erosion of hope. Dreams, even the smallest ones, have a way of anchoring us to something bigger than ourselves, whether it's the unconscious working through daily struggles or the mind daring to envision a future full of potential. Without dreams, that connection to the future starts to fray. The person finds themselves losing touch with the possibilities they once believed in. No matter how faint, life becomes a series of steps, one after the other, but with no vision of where they're headed. The dream thief doesn't just take dreams. It steals the future, the ability to look forward with wonder or fear or anticipation. Over time, those affected by the dream thief are left with a quiet resignation. It's not a dramatic despair, but something more insidious, a slow fading of who they were. They might still laugh, love, and live, but it's all surface level, without depth. The stolen dream leaves an absence that can't be filled by new ones because their capacity to dream has been wounded. They are left in a liminal space, neither fully awake nor asleep, drifting through life without the internal compass that once guided them. In a way, they become like shadows of their former selves, lost in the spaces between what is and what could have been. Recovering a stolen dream is not a simple matter of just finding it again. The act of theft leaves a scar, a void where something precious once resided, and even if the dream were to be returned, it never comes back unchanged. Dreams, once stolen, are fragmented, fractured by the act of being torn away from their source. The person who has lost their dream doesn't always know what was taken, and so the journey to recover it is more like a search for something lost in the shadows, a part of themselves that has slipped out of reach. But recovery, though difficult, is possible. It requires more than simply waiting for the dream to be handed back. Often, it begins with an awakening, a subtle realization that something is indeed missing, even if they don't know what it is. The person must first come to terms with the emptiness they feel, acknowledge that it's not just a fleeting sense of loss, but something deeper. This awareness is the first step. From there, the search to recover a stolen dream is less about seeking the dream itself and more about reconnecting with the part of themselves that the dream once touched. It's a journey inward, back to the places within that they may have long forgotten, to the parts of their mind and soul that once housed their desires, fears, and hopes. Sometimes, a stolen dream finds its way back through the smallest, most unexpected triggers. It might be a familiar smell, a piece of music, or a face in a crowd that stirs something long dormant. These moments are fleeting but powerful, offering glimpses of the dream, or at least the feelings it once evoked. The person feels a tug at something buried, a spark of recognition that hints at what was lost. Following these faint trails is like piecing together fragments of a forgotten memory, slowly rebuilding the dream from the scattered remnants left behind. It's not a process that happens overnight. It takes time, patience, and a willingness to confront the spaces where the dream once lived. Other times, the stolen dream can only be recovered by facing the thief directly. The dream thief, though elusive, is not always invincible. It feeds on the stolen dreams, but is bound by them as well. Some say that to recover a stolen dream, one must confront the thief in the twilight between sleep and wakefulness, in that fragile space where dreams are born. It's in these moments that the thief is most vulnerable, and the person must wrestle with it, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, as if reclaiming the very essence of who they are. The struggle is not without cost, though. Even when the dream is returned, it's rarely the same as before. The theft leaves a mark, and the dream, once whole, may come back changed, twisted by the thief's influence, but still part of the person's soul. In some cases, the person can't recover the exact dream that was taken, but in the process of searching, they discover new dreams, new desires they didn't know existed. The act of confronting the loss forces them to explore uncharted territories within themselves, leading to revelations about who they are and what they truly want. These new dreams, born from the ashes of the stolen one, may not be the same, but they offer a sense of renewal, a chance to rebuild what was lost in a different form. The recovery is less about restoring what once was and more about learning to dream again, finding the capacity to hope and imagine once more. Even though a stolen dream may be recovered, the person who reclaims it is never quite the same. The experience changes them, deepens them. They come to understand that dreams are fragile things, easily lost but never entirely beyond reach. The act of recovering a stolen dream is not just about getting back what was taken. It's about rediscovering the power of dreaming itself, the part of being human that lets us create worlds within our minds, even when those worlds have been shattered. And in that rediscovery, there's a quiet strength, a resilience that allows them to move forward, even if the dream they've recovered is forever changed. When someone's dream is taken, it's as if an invisible thread has been severed, and the disconnection runs deeper than they might initially realize. Their behavior often shifts in subtle ways at first, almost imperceptibly to those around them, but inside, there's a gnawing emptiness. They may go about their daily routines, but with each passing day, they feel themselves drifting further from the person they once were. The emotions that used to guide them through life, ambition, excitement, curiosity, become dulled. They might not understand why, but they start to feel unmoored, like a ship that's lost its anchor. It's not a dramatic unraveling, but the small, quiet moments where they once found meaning seem to lose their spark. People often describe feeling disconnected, not only from their dreams, but from the very core of themselves. They might continue to work, to laugh, to socialize, but there's an absence of depth in those interactions. The inner world they used to escape to, the place where their hopes and fears lived, has been drained of color. It's as though the emotional landscape of their mind has flattened, leaving them wandering through it aimlessly. This sense of detachment can make them seem distant to others, even though they don't intend to pull away. It's as if the loss of their dream creates an invisible wall between them and the rest of the world, and they can't quite figure out how to break through it. The psychological consequences can be profound. Without dreams to nourish their inner life, people begin to lose a sense of direction. The mind, which once thrived on possibilities, now struggles to find purpose. For some, it can lead to a slow, creeping sadness that they can't explain. It's not always a full depression, but a low hum of despair that makes everything feel a little heavier. They may still function, but the joy they once found in small things fades. Even activities they used to love feel like chores. Their world becomes one of going through the motions, with no clear reason for why they're doing anything at all. Some might try to fill the void with distractions, busying themselves with work, or seeking constant stimulation, hoping that something external will reignite the fire inside. But these efforts rarely work. The emptiness left by the stolen dream isn't something that can be filled with noise or activity. It lingers in quiet moments, when they're alone with their thoughts, reminding them of what's missing, even if they don't fully understand it. This can lead to frustration, a sense of helplessness that seeps into their interactions with others. They might become irritable, quick to snap at minor inconveniences, or they may withdraw entirely, retreating into themselves as if hiding from a wound they don't know how to heal. Over time, some do lose hope. The absence of dreams means the absence of a future to strive toward, and without that, the days can blur together in a monotonous haze. People who once had grand visions, or even modest aspirations, find themselves unable to summon the energy to care about what comes next. This loss of hope is quiet and insidious, not always visible to the outside world, but it eats away at their spirit. It's not that they give up entirely, but they begin to settle for less. They accept a life that feels smaller, more confined, as though their potential has been taken along with the dream. For others, the psychological toll manifests in restlessness, an urge to chase after something, anything, that might bring back what they've lost. They may jump from project to project, relationship to relationship, seeking a spark of meaning, but nothing quite satisfies. It's as if they're trying to recreate the feeling of having a dream, without knowing how to actually find one again. This restlessness can lead to feelings of failure or inadequacy when nothing seems to fill the gap. The internal pressure to fix themselves can be overwhelming, but without understanding the source of the void, their efforts only leave them more frustrated. In rare cases, people find a quiet resilience in the aftermath. While they may never recover the exact dream that was stolen, the experience of its loss forces them to look inward in ways they never had to before. They come to terms with the emptiness, learning to navigate life without the certainty of a clear direction. Though they carry the scar of the stolen dream, they develop a new kind of strength, one rooted not in hope but in endurance. But even this resilience comes with a cost: the recognition that some parts of themselves may never fully return, and the acceptance that life, once filled with dreams, has shifted into a more uncertain, but perhaps more profound, existence. When the dream thief is near, there are signs, but they are never obvious. It begins as a feeling, subtle and elusive, something that can easily be brushed off as a passing mood. People often notice a strange heaviness in the air, as if the atmosphere itself has thickened. It's not oppressive, but enough to make them pause, to feel as though something is slightly off. It's the kind of sensation that lingers in the background of their awareness, like the faintest whisper of a storm on the horizon. Most don't recognize it for what it is at first. They dismiss it as tiredness, or stress, or just a bad day. But those who've encountered the dream thief before know better. There's a stillness that accompanies its presence, a quietness in the spaces where there should be sound. It might be the sudden silence of the wind outside a window, or the way the usual nighttime noises seem muted, as if the world is holding its breath. People often find themselves waking in the middle of the night, disturbed by nothing they can recall. Their sleep feels lighter, more fragile, as if their mind can't fully sink into the deep realms where dreams usually flourish. These restless nights are the first indication that something is wrong. They wake with an uneasy feeling, as though something important has slipped away from their grasp, but they can't remember what it is. Some describe seeing fleeting shadows at the edges of their vision, shapes that disappear the moment they turn to look. It's not that the dream thief is visible. It never shows itself so plainly, but there's a sense of something lurking just beyond perception, a presence that doesn't belong. It moves silently through the room, leaving no trace, but its passage is felt in the small, inexplicable moments when reality seems to blur. People might notice that time feels strange in those moments, slowed down or speeding up, creating an unsettling disorientation. These shifts are subtle, easily missed, but they leave behind a sense of being out of sync with the world, as if they've slipped into a space between wakefulness and sleep without realizing it. Another sign comes in the form of dreams themselves. As the dream thief draws closer, dreams become fragmented, disjointed. They no longer flow naturally, instead breaking apart in strange, unsettling ways. People often find themselves jolting awake from dreams that feel incomplete, as if something vital has been ripped from them before they could fully understand it. The images that remain are blurry, fading too quickly to hold on to. It's not always frightening, but it leaves a deep sense of unease, the feeling that something important has been interrupted. These broken dreams are a warning, though few recognize them as such. As the dream thief nears, people also begin to notice a dullness in their emotions during the day. It's not the same as losing the dream itself, but there's a subtle fading of the vividness they're used to. Colors seem a little less bright, sounds a little more muted. Conversations don't quite land the way they used to, as though there's a thin veil between them and the world. This emotional dulling is a precursor, a signal that the thief is creeping closer, preparing to take more than just a single night's dream. It drains the emotional energy that usually fuels the imagination, leaving behind a hollow space where creativity once lived. People often describe an instinctual need to protect their sleep, a sudden wariness of drifting off, even when they're exhausted. It's as if, on some unconscious level, they know that something is lurking, waiting for the moment when they're most vulnerable. They might delay going to bed, finding excuses to stay awake just a little longer, even though they can't explain why. This reluctance to sleep is a final, desperate defense, a last attempt to keep the dream thief at bay. But the thief is patient. It waits in the quiet spaces between breaths, in the pauses between thoughts, until the moment when sleep finally takes hold and the mind opens up to it. And when the dream thief strikes, it's not always in a dramatic fashion. There is no grand gesture, no violent tearing away of the dream. Instead, it slips in unnoticed, taking what it came for so quietly that the person doesn't even realize what's happened until they wake. The night passes, and only afterward does the sense of loss settle in, the slow realization that something is missing. By then, it's too late. The signs were there all along, but recognizing them only ever seems to happen in hindsight. Living without dreams doesn't stop life from moving forward, but it changes how a person experiences it. On the surface, they can still go through the motions, perform tasks, maintain relationships, and meet expectations. To an outsider, they might seem perfectly fine, doing everything that would qualify as a normal life. But beneath that surface, the loss of dreams creates a subtle shift, a hollowing out of the inner world that others may not see. It's not an immediate collapse or a sudden inability to function, but more like a slow erosion of what gives life its deeper meaning. The person might continue to live, but something essential is missing, and over time, the absence becomes more noticeable. Without dreams, the drive that pushes a person toward the future weakens. They can still work, still plan for the next day, but it's done more out of habit than passion. The spark of imagination, that quiet voice that whispers about possibilities, is silent. People often find themselves feeling strangely numb, disconnected from the parts of life that used to make them feel alive. They might even begin to question why they're doing what they're doing, though they rarely voice these thoughts aloud. It's not that they lose the ability to function, but the texture of their existence becomes flat. The highs and lows of life smooth out into a kind of emotional neutrality. They exist in a state where things simply are, without the deeper emotional resonance that dreams once provided. For some, the loss can be debilitating in ways that aren't immediately obvious. They might still get up in the morning, still go to work or school, still talk to friends, but there's a quiet resignation in their actions. Without dreams, they lose the sense of striving, of reaching for something beyond the day-to-day. The future becomes a blank slate, not because it's full of possibility, but because it's devoid of anything to hope for or imagine. This lack of direction can be deeply unsettling. People begin to feel as if they're just passing through life, rather than actively living it. Even though they might fulfill all the necessary roles expected of them, parent, employee, friend, there's an emptiness in those roles, a sense that they're merely playing a part without truly inhabiting it. The absence of dreams can also affect relationships in subtle ways. When a person loses the internal drive that dreams once provided, it becomes harder to connect with others on a deeper level. They may still love, still care, but there's a certain distance that develops. They find it harder to share their inner world because that world feels empty or inaccessible. Conversations that used to spark with energy or curiosity now feel routine. The loss of dreams drains the emotional vibrancy from their interactions, leaving them feeling like they're on autopilot, going through the motions without the joy or sorrow that once colored their connections. Yet, even with all of this, many can still live what appears to be a normal life. They may adjust to the emptiness, accepting it as part of their reality, and learn to move through their days without expecting the same intensity of feeling or purpose they once had. In some ways, they become incredibly resilient, finding ways to adapt to life without the inner guidance that dreams provide. They might focus more on practicalities, immersing themselves in tasks that keep them grounded in the present moment. There's a kind of survival instinct that kicks in, allowing them to function despite the void they carry within. But the loss of dreams never truly leaves them untouched. Over time, the absence creates a quiet sorrow, even if it's not always recognized as such. The person might not be debilitated in the traditional sense. They can still move forward, still make choices, still live, but the richness of their life is diminished. The world, once full of possibility, becomes more limited, more confined. They may continue to exist within the framework of what's expected, but without dreams, they lose the ability to envision a life beyond the boundaries of the present. They can live, but it's a life that feels smaller, more constrained, and ultimately more fragile. When all of a person's dreams are taken by the dream thief, it's as if every light within them has been extinguished, leaving behind a vast, cold emptiness. The loss isn't just of individual hopes or fleeting aspirations, but of the entire landscape of their inner world. They wake up each day to a reality that feels distant, almost unreal, as if they're watching their life unfold from behind a thick pane of glass. The vibrant, pulsing force that once animated their thoughts, their actions, and their desires is gone. What remains is a hollow shell, going through the motions of living, but without the warmth of purpose or direction. It's a kind of quiet death, though they continue to breathe, to speak, to interact with the world around them. There's a numbness that settles deep into their bones, a cold weight that presses down on everything they do. It's not the sharp pain of grief or the sting of loss that one might expect, but something more insidious, an absence so profound it's difficult to even name. Without dreams, there's no internal compass to guide them. They may continue to fulfill their obligations, go to work, attend to daily tasks, but every action feels mechanical. There's no sense of joy or anticipation for what comes next, because in their mind, the future no longer holds anything meaningful. The world becomes small and colorless, a series of tasks to be completed without any real sense of accomplishment or fulfillment. They become a stranger to themselves, unable to connect with the person they used to be, because that person was shaped by the dreams that are now gone. The psychological toll of losing all their dreams can be devastating. It's not just a loss of ambition or hope, it's a loss of identity. Dreams are the threads that weave together a person's sense of self, their reason for being. Without them, they no longer know who they are or what they want. The mind, which once brimmed with possibilities, now feels like an empty room, echoing with the absence of what used to fill it. This emptiness can give way to despair, a quiet, creeping sense of hopelessness that pervades their entire existence. They begin to question the point of everything. Why they wake up, why they engage with others, why they continue to move forward at all. And though they might not vocalize these thoughts, the sense of purposelessness begins to weigh on them in ways they can't fully explain. Emotionally, they feel disconnected from the world around them. Relationships that once brought comfort and joy feel distant, as if there's a barrier preventing them from fully engaging. They might smile, laugh, and talk, but there's no depth to those interactions. It's as though they're performing a role, but their heart isn't in it. The people who care about them might notice the change, sensing the emptiness behind their eyes, the way their responses lack the spark of genuine feeling. But trying to explain what's wrong feels impossible. How do you describe the loss of something so intangible, something as elusive as a dream? Without dreams, time itself seems to stretch out endlessly, a vast, monotonous expanse with no clear markers of progress or achievement. The days blur together, each one indistinguishable from the last. There's no excitement for the future because the future feels like a void, an endless repetition of the same hollow moments. Even the passage of time loses its meaning. Without the hope of something new, something better, the present feels eternal, as if they're trapped in a loop they can't escape from. They may still engage in daily routines, but those routines no longer provide structure or comfort, just a means of getting through the day. For some, the loss of all their dreams can lead to a deep isolation. They withdraw from others, not out of anger or sadness, but because they no longer see the point in reaching out. The connections that once anchored them to the world feel frayed, and without dreams, there's no desire to mend them. It's not that they stop caring about the people in their life, but they lose the ability to see how those relationships fit into a future that now feels bleak and empty. They retreat inward, into the quiet space left behind by their stolen dreams, even though there's nothing there to find. It's a kind of self-preservation, a way to protect themselves from the overwhelming void they feel inside. And yet, even in this state, they continue to exist. The body keeps moving, the mind keeps functioning, but it's as if the soul has been taken along with the dreams. They become a shadow of who they once were, a presence that exists in the world without truly living in it. It's not death, but it's not life either. It's something in between, a state of suspended being where everything feels both too much and too little at the same time. There's no fight left in them, no desire to reclaim what's been lost, because without dreams, they can't even remember what it felt like to want something, to hope for something. It's a numbness that becomes their reality, a quiet surrender to the absence of everything that once made life feel real. The dream thief doesn't enter through any visible door, nor does it come with a flash of magic. Its way into a person's dream world is far more subtle, almost imperceptible, as if it slips between the cracks of consciousness when no one is watching. There is no grand, magical mechanism, nothing that announces its arrival. Instead, it finds its way through the tiny fractures in the mind, the moments when a person's guard is down, when they drift into sleep and the boundaries between reality and dreams begin to blur. The transition is so seamless that it feels almost natural, as if the thief belongs there, hiding in the familiar landscapes of the subconscious. It seems to move through thoughts as though they are threads, weaving itself into the fabric of the dream world without disturbing the delicate balance of imagination. Dreams are strange and fluid places where logic doesn't always hold, and the thief knows this well. It doesn't need to force its way in because dreams are already open, vulnerable spaces. It's the liminal nature of dreaming that allows the dream thief to enter so easily. As a person falls deeper into sleep, the mind becomes less tethered to the rules of the waking world, and in that looseness, the thief finds its path. It's not a physical entry in the way we might think of it, but rather a slipping into the stream of consciousness, moving with the ebb and flow of thoughts that a person is only half aware of. The mechanism is more like a subtle manipulation of perception. The dream thief seems to understand the rhythms of the subconscious, the way dreams rise and fall like waves. It waits for that moment when the mind is lost in the swirling depths of imagination, when dreams are just beginning to take shape but haven't yet become solid. In those moments, there's a vulnerability, an opening that the thief exploits. It doesn't need force or magic, just patience. It enters quietly, unnoticed, blending into the dream as if it has always been there. The person dreaming doesn't realize what's happening because the thief doesn't disturb the dream itself. Instead, it watches, waits, and finds the parts of the dream that matter most. The ones that hold meaning, that carry a person's deepest desires and fears, and it takes them. There's something almost predatory in the way it moves, though it never feels threatening. It doesn't need to. The dream world is a place where anything can happen, where the mind expects the unexpected, so the presence of the dream thief doesn't register as foreign. It's like a shadow passing through the landscape, indistinct, a part of the dream but not quite. The thief understands that dreams are fragile things, held together by the thinnest threads of thought, and it is skilled in slipping through those threads without breaking them. The mechanism isn't magic in the traditional sense, but there is something almost otherworldly about how easily it can navigate the pathways of the mind. It doesn't leave a trace as it enters, no sign of intrusion that the dreamer can detect. To them, everything seems normal, until it's not. The dreams play out as they always have, but by the time the person wakes, something is missing, something vital that they can't quite put their finger on. The dream thief has already come and gone by then, taking what it came for and leaving behind only fragments of what was once whole. The dreamer is left with an unsettling feeling, a vague sense of loss that gnaws at them throughout the day, though they can't explain why. They might remember the dream in pieces, but the heart of it, the part that mattered most, has been stolen, leaving them with only a hollow echo of what should have been. In a way, the dream thief's method is almost poetic in its simplicity. It doesn't need grand gestures or supernatural powers to enter a dream. It relies on the natural vulnerability of the mind in its most unguarded state. It uses the very nature of dreams, fluid, changeable, and often forgotten, to its advantage. And once inside, it moves with a quiet precision, taking what it needs without ever being noticed. It's not magic in the way we think of spells or enchantments, but there is something deeply mysterious about its ability to navigate the hidden realms of the subconscious so effortlessly. The dream thief's powers, as formidable as they are not without limits. While it can slip into the dream world with unsettling ease, its reach is not boundless, and there are invisible barriers it cannot cross. The mind, though vulnerable during sleep, is not entirely defenseless. There are places within a person's subconscious where even the dream thief cannot tread, deep, hidden spaces where the most sacred dreams reside. These dreams are not the fleeting desires of the conscious mind, but the primal, ancient ones, the ones that lie beneath memory and thought. They are guarded not by willpower, but by something more instinctual, something the dream thief cannot fully grasp or manipulate. It cannot steal dreams from anyone, anywhere, for the human mind is complex, and some people are harder to reach than others. There are those whose minds are not as easily penetrable, perhaps because they've built a natural resilience over time, or because their dreams are tightly woven into the core of their identity. For these people, their dreams are more than just fanciful imaginings. They are expressions of who they are on a fundamental level. The dream thief finds these minds more difficult to enter, as if they are wrapped in layers of defense that even it cannot fully unravel. It can linger at the edges, observe from afar, but it struggles to find purchase in a mind so deeply protected. There are also certain times or states of mind when the dream thief is less effective. When a person is fully connected to their dreams, when their subconscious is alive with clarity and intention, the thief encounters resistance. It thrives on chaos and confusion, on the fragmented nature of most dreams. But when a person dreams with a sense of purpose, when their dreams are lucid and controlled, it finds itself at a disadvantage. In those moments, the dreamer becomes more powerful than the thief, able to steer their own subconscious in ways that the thief cannot manipulate. The clearer the dream, the harder it is for the thief to steal anything from it, as if the very act of dreaming with intention creates a shield that the thief cannot penetrate. Moreover, the dream thief is bound by proximity in ways that aren't entirely understood. It cannot simply reach across vast distances or invade the dreams of those far removed from its presence. There seems to be a tether between the thief and its victims, an invisible connection that draws it to certain individuals. Perhaps it's an energy, a vulnerability in the air, or a subtle call from the dreamer's unconscious mind. It may sense those whose dreams are already fragile, those who are lost in the complexity of their own thoughts, and it is drawn to them. It doesn't have the power to seek out anyone, anywhere, but instead relies on the resonance between itself and the minds it targets. This connection acts like a beacon, guiding it to those it can influence most easily. The dream thief also cannot forcefully take what is too tightly held. Some dreams, especially those tied to deep, unshakable parts of a person's identity, are beyond its grasp. These dreams are not easily disturbed because they are woven into the very fabric of who the person is. Even if it tries, the thief finds that these dreams resist being unraveled. It can attempt to siphon them away, but the dreamer's own mind pushes back, sometimes without the person even realizing it. These dreams are the core of a person's being, and they fight to stay intact, regardless of the thief's intentions. Time is another limitation. The dream thief cannot linger forever in a single mind, nor can it keep returning to steal more from the same person indefinitely. There is a balance it must maintain, a cycle in which it moves from one mind to the next. Staying too long in one place leaves it vulnerable, as the mind begins to recognize the intrusion, even subconsciously, and can push it out. It must take what it can quickly and leave, knowing that its window of opportunity is always closing. For some, this means they only lose fragments of their dreams, while others may suffer a more complete loss, depending on how deeply the thief can penetrate before it must withdraw. Despite its eerie power, the dream thief is not omnipotent. There are layers of the human psyche that remain beyond its reach, and its abilities, while terrifying, are confined to certain conditions. It can't touch those who have mastered the art of dreaming, nor can it take what is too deeply protected by the mind itself. It remains bound by the subtleties of the dream world, where every mind is a unique landscape, with its own rules and defenses. Though it may be powerful, it is always at the mercy of the complexities and mysteries of the human mind. The dream thief, while it is known for its ability to steal dreams, has a far more subtle and insidious power. It can also manipulate dreams once it slips inside them. Its presence in a dream doesn't always result in an immediate theft. Often, it moves with such delicacy that it begins to alter the dream from within before it takes anything at all. The dreamer might be unaware of the shift, believing their subconscious is simply playing out its usual strange and unpredictable narrative. But beneath the surface, the thief is at work. It manipulates the dreamscape, changing small details, twisting familiar places into something unfamiliar, or introducing a quiet tension that wasn't there before. The manipulation doesn't feel violent or intrusive at first. It's more like a suggestion, a soft nudge that redirects the flow of the dream. The thief might take something as innocuous as a serene landscape and turn it dark, adding shadows that creep in around the edges, making the dreamer feel uneasy without understanding why. It knows how to play with emotions, taking peaceful moments and filling them with a sense of impending dread. The dreamer might not realize that their once comforting dream has become unsettling until it's too late. The thief doesn't need to create nightmares outright. It's the subtle changes that do the most damage. A shift in lighting, a voice that sounds slightly off, or a beloved figure who suddenly feels distant. All of these can unsettle the dreamer and weaken their defenses. The manipulation becomes most effective when the dreamer is lulled into a false sense of security. The thief can make the dream appear as though it's following a natural course, only to slowly steer it toward a more chaotic or confusing state. It might introduce unfamiliar elements, like a stranger who seems to know too much or a place that feels out of place, causing the dreamer to question the dream's reality. In doing so, it disrupts the normal flow of the subconscious, creating cracks in the dreamer's sense of control. These cracks are where the thief finds its advantage. The more disoriented the dreamer becomes, the easier it is for the thief to reach in and take what it came for. But the dream thief's manipulation isn't just about creating confusion. It can also play with desires, turning them into something darker or more elusive. It knows how to take a dreamer's deepest wishes and twist them, making the dreamer chase after something they can't quite reach. This creates a sense of longing or frustration, weakening the dreamer's connection to the dream itself. The more the dreamer tries to hold on to what is slipping away, the more power the thief gains. It feeds off this emotional turmoil, distorting the dream so that it no longer brings joy or fulfillment, but instead becomes a labyrinth of unfulfilled hopes and fears. Manipulation in this way serves the dream thief's ultimate purpose. By altering the dream, it softens the dreamer's mind, making it easier to extract what it wants. A dreamer who is confused, anxious, or emotionally drained is far less likely to notice when something vital has been taken. The manipulation acts like a smoke screen, keeping the dreamer distracted while the thief performs its true task. It's not that the thief takes pleasure in the manipulation. It's simply a means to an end, a way to ensure that the theft is as seamless as possible. Once the dreamer is sufficiently disoriented, the thief can take what it needs without fear of resistance. In some cases, the thief may manipulate the dream so subtly that the dreamer never realizes anything has changed at all. These are the most dangerous moments, when the dream feels so normal, so familiar, that the dreamer's guard is completely down. The thief slips in and out without causing a ripple, leaving the dreamer to wake up with only the faintest sense that something is missing. It is only later, when they can no longer remember a cherished dream or feel an inexplicable hollowness, that they realize something has been taken. But the manipulation has its limits. The thief cannot create entirely new dreams or implant thoughts that didn't already exist in some form. It can only work with what is already there, reshaping and distorting the dreamer's existing subconscious material. This means that it is bound by the contours of the dreamer's mind, limited to the themes, emotions, and ideas that the dreamer naturally produces. It cannot force the dreamer into a completely alien scenario, nor can it fabricate emotions that the dreamer wouldn't otherwise feel. The manipulation is subtle and careful, always respecting the dreamer's internal landscape, even as it seeks to exploit it. Ultimately, the dream thief's ability to manipulate dreams is part of what makes it so dangerous. It doesn't need to announce itself or act with force to achieve its goals. Instead, it works quietly, changing the dream from within until the dreamer is lost in a world that no longer feels like their own. And by the time the thief is finished, the dreamer is left with a fractured version of their once vivid inner world, unsure of what was real and what was taken. Though the dream thief seems powerful, elusive, and nearly unstoppable, it does possess weaknesses that can be exploited, even if they aren't immediately obvious. The first and most potent of these weaknesses lies in awareness. The dream thief thrives in the shadows, in the murky spaces between sleep and wakefulness, where a person's mind is open but unaware of what's unfolding. But once a person becomes conscious of the possibility of the dream thief, something changes. Awareness acts as a kind of barrier, a subtle but powerful defense. When someone knows the thief is lurking, even on a subconscious level, they begin to regain a sense of control over their dreams. It's not an ironclad defense, but the very act of recognizing that something is wrong creates resistance, a kind of mental fortification that the dream thief struggles to penetrate. Lucid dreaming is another way a person can defend themselves. In a lucid dream, the dreamer becomes aware that they are dreaming and can control their surroundings, their actions, and the flow of the dream. This level of self-awareness turns the tables on the dream thief. When a person is fully aware that they are dreaming, the dream ceases to be a passive experience. The dream thief, which depends on the dreamer's vulnerability and passivity, finds itself at a disadvantage. Lucid dreamers can manipulate their own dreams in ways that make it difficult for the thief to find any weak points to exploit. The thief cannot easily alter or steal from a dream that is under the full control of its owner, and the clearer the dreamer's control, the weaker the thief's influence becomes. Another weakness of the dream thief is emotional resilience. The thief preys on fear, confusion, and emotional vulnerability. Dreams are deeply tied to a person's emotional state, and the thief knows how to manipulate those feelings to its advantage. But when a person has a strong sense of emotional balance, the thief finds it harder to destabilize their dreams. If a person can approach their dreams with calmness, even in the face of the strange or unsettling, the dream thief struggles to find cracks in their subconscious. Emotional strength creates a kind of stability that makes the dream world less susceptible to the thief's subtle manipulations. The dreamer's inner calm acts like an anchor, preventing the dream from spiraling into chaos, which in turn makes it harder for the thief to take anything of value. Moreover, the dream thief is not impervious to the connections that tie people to one another. Dreams are often interwoven with the thoughts and feelings we have about the people in our lives, and in some cases, these connections can offer protection. When a dream is centered around loved ones, the thief may find it more difficult to interfere. There's a kind of collective strength in dreams that involve close relationships, a protective instinct that extends into the dream world. It's as though the emotional bonds between people form a barrier, a shared defense that the thief cannot easily bypass. Dreams rooted in love, trust, or deep personal connection can create a web of protection, one that the dream thief finds harder to unravel. The dream thief is also constrained by time. It cannot linger indefinitely in someone's dream. It has a limited window in which to act, and if it doesn't succeed in stealing what it came for quickly, it must withdraw. Dreams are fleeting, shifting things, and the longer the thief stays, the more it risks being detected. This time, constraint creates a vulnerability. If a dreamer can prolong their dream without allowing it to descend into confusion or fear, they may be able to outlast the thief's presence. The thief is most effective when it can act swiftly and without interference, but dreams that are stable and enduring make its job much harder. In these cases, the thief might attempt to manipulate the dream, but the longer the dreamer remains in control, the less time the thief has to accomplish its task. Another way to defend against the dream thief involves rituals of the mind before sleep. Practices like meditation, setting intentions, or grounding thoughts before drifting into dreams can create mental fortresses that are difficult for the thief to break through. When a person enters sleep with a clear and calm mind, having deliberately shaped their thoughts and emotions, they become less susceptible to the thief's quiet intrusions. These mental practices help to solidify the dreamer's control over their subconscious, giving them the upper hand even in the most vulnerable states of sleep. The thief feeds on confusion and unpredictability, but a mind that is organized, centered, and intentional is much harder for it to manipulate. Though the dream thief seems like a force beyond comprehension, it is not all-powerful. The human mind, despite its vulnerabilities, possesses its own defenses, some of which are deeply intuitive and instinctual. Emotional resilience, lucid awareness, and strong personal connections can all serve as shields against the thief's influence. And while the thief may be skilled in deception and manipulation, it is still bound by the rules of the dream world, a place where the mind's hidden strength can rise up and push back against even the most silent of intruders. The dream thief moves in shadows, but its world is a place most never see. It exists in the fragile space between reality and the dream realm, but it is not entirely bound to either. While it feeds and thrives in dreams, slipping through the cracks of sleeping minds, it has learned the art of lingering just on the edge of wakefulness. It's not so much that it walks freely in the physical world. Its power weakens there, but it can influence. It can plant seeds of doubt, fear, or wonder in someone who's awake, like the remnants of a dream you can't quite shake off. You might notice the cold chill that comes with it, or the unspoken sense that something's missing when you wake up. It's the same feeling as forgetting a dream the moment your eyes open. An emptiness, a space where something once was. In this sense, the dream thief can never fully break free from the dream world, but it doesn't need to. It knows how to leave its mark on reality without fully stepping into it, operating like a whisper, like the flicker of an image that vanishes before you can focus on it. People might dismiss it as their imagination or call it a strange coincidence, but the dream thief knows it's real. It exists in that delicate balance where dreams bleed into life, threading itself into the unconscious moments of a waking mind. It doesn't need full control of the real world to affect it. All it needs is access to the blurred space where sleep and consciousness meet. And that's where its true power lies. Never seen, never fully felt, but always present, lurking just out of reach. When a dream is stolen, it doesn't simply vanish. The dream thief holds on to them, but not in a way you might expect. These dreams aren't consumed like fuel, they're preserved, kept in a realm that exists beyond our understanding of space and time. A place no one can reach, not even the dreamer who once owned them. It's as though they're plucked from the flow of thought and stored away, suspended in an endless, shapeless void. Each stolen dream becomes a fragment of what it once was, no longer vibrant or whole, but instead frozen in a kind of half-life, incomplete and restless. They gather there, not quite alive, but not entirely dead either, caught between the dream world and the forgotten corners of the mind. In this hidden realm, the dream thief doesn't consume the dreams outright. It's more of a collector, gathering bits and pieces from every person it touches. These dreams lose their connection to the person who originally dreamed them, leaving behind an emptiness, like a room where the light has been snuffed out. The stolen dreams take on a new, almost hollow quality, no longer part of the flow of consciousness. And yet, the dream thief knows they're there, tucked away in a hidden collection that only it can access. Each dream is like a relic, a memory of what could have been, but never will be again. It's a strange, quiet place, silent except for the faint echoes of the dreams themselves, lingering just enough to remind the dream thief of its power. The dreamer, however, is left with nothing but the faintest sense of loss, not knowing what's been taken, only that something is missing. The dream thief doesn't simply take dreams for the sake of hoarding them. There's a deeper purpose behind its actions, something more intricate than a straightforward quest for power. Once a dream is stolen, it becomes part of the thief's own essence, subtly altering its nature. These dreams, once vibrant and full of life, are stripped of their personal connection to the dreamer and twisted into something else. They become raw energy, a kind of currency the dream thief can use to manipulate the dream realm. It's not about control in the traditional sense, but rather the ability to reshape the landscape of dreams themselves. With each stolen dream, the thief can bend the boundaries of the dream world, creating new pathways, illusions, or even entire landscapes that wouldn't exist otherwise. The transformation isn't just for the thief's own gain. It uses the dreams to build a kind of labyrinth, weaving together fragments from different minds to create a space that's entirely its own. It's a strange, patchwork realm, made up of the shattered remnants of other people's dreams, distorted and rearranged into something unrecognizable. And yet, there's beauty in the chaos. The dream thief takes these fractured pieces and molds them into a vast, shifting reality, one that only it can navigate. In a way, the stolen dreams become part of the thief's very existence, fueling its ability to thrive in the dream world, but also giving it the power to shape and mold that world according to its will. For the thief, it's not about draining power like a parasite. It's about creation, about using the essence of dreams to craft a world that exists beyond the limits of human imagination. The stolen dreams are transformed, yes, but they don't disappear. They become something new, something that lives on in a different form. The dream thief doesn't simply destroy. It rebuilds, creating a reality that's woven from the threads of what was once someone's deepest, most private thoughts. It's a delicate, almost artistic process, one that leaves the dreamer behind while the thief moves forward, constructing a world of its own design. Each dreamer's world is like a fingerprint, distinct and uniquely crafted by the depths of their mind. The dream thief understands this and moves through them with a fluidity that comes from centuries of experience. It knows that no two dreamscapes are the same. Some are lush and vibrant, filled with surreal colors and strange landscapes, while others are dark, chaotic, almost indecipherable. The dream thief doesn't see these differences as obstacles, but as opportunities. It slips seamlessly from one dream world to another, adapting to the nuances of each one as if it has known the dreamer their whole life. It senses the underlying structure, the rules each mind subconsciously creates, and adjusts its presence to fit, becoming part of the dream without disrupting it, like a shadow that belongs but doesn't. Navigating these landscapes requires more than just movement. The dream thief can read the emotional currents that flow beneath each dream, understanding what drives them and how to follow those paths. It moves with purpose, guided not by logic or the physical laws that govern waking life, but by the shifting tides of desire, fear, memory, and hope. Each emotion creates a doorway, each subconscious thought a hidden trail. The dream thief knows where to look, slipping through these mental passages with a precision that feels almost instinctual. It doesn't need to force its way in. It finds the cracks, the soft spots, and weaves its way through, invisible and unnoticed. In a sense, the thief becomes a part of each dream as it navigates, merging with the dreamer's subconscious so completely that even the dreamer can't tell where their mind ends and the thief begins. It's not a matter of taking control, but rather blending in, moving through the landscape like wind through the trees, present but unseen. Each step is deliberate, and each movement calculated to avoid detection, because once the dreamer becomes aware of its presence, the dream changes, and the thief loses its advantage. It thrives in the unnoticed, in the space between awareness and oblivion, where the boundaries of the dream world blur and it can move freely. What makes the dream thief so effective is its understanding of these unique dreamscapes, its ability to become part of them without ever truly belonging. It knows how to navigate the delicate balance of each dreamer's mind, slipping between their creations with an ease that makes it seem like it's always been there. It's a master of subtlety, an expert in walking the fine line between reality and imagination, always just out of reach, never fully seen. The landscapes shift and change, but the dream thief never falters. It knows how to navigate them all. The dream thief's reach extends beyond the moment of a dream itself. It doesn't have to wait until someone is fully immersed in sleep to strike. In fact, its power lies in being able to sense the potential of a dream long before it fully forms. The dreamer might not even be aware that something is stirring in their mind. A fleeting thought before bed, a distant memory resurfacing, or an unresolved emotion bubbling up from the subconscious. These are the seedlings of dreams, and the dream thief knows how to catch them at their earliest stages, plucking them before they have a chance to grow into the vivid worlds we experience during sleep. It's as though the thief operates on a different timeline, able to sense the subtle shifts in the brain's activity that signal the approach of a dream. It doesn't need to wait for the dreamer to fully enter REM sleep, where dreams become most vivid. Instead, it can reach into the layers of thought just before the dream emerges, stealing it in its most fragile state. There's something more delicate, almost surgical, about this kind of theft. The dreamer is left with a strange emptiness when they wake, never knowing what was lost because it never fully materialized. It's not a memory they can grasp onto or a half-forgotten dream. They wake without ever realizing a dream was supposed to happen at all. For the dream thief, this preemptive act is about control. It doesn't need the fully formed landscapes and intricate details of an ongoing dream. By stealing the dream before it happens, it can take the raw potential, the emotion, and the energy that would have shaped the dream, using it to fuel its own existence. There's no need for it to wait in the shadows of an active dream. It thrives on anticipation, on the energy of what's to come rather than what already is. It's a way of disrupting the natural flow, leaving the dreamer unaware that something was meant to unfold. The dream never becomes a reality in the mind, and the dreamer never has a chance to experience it. Instead, the thief holds it, transforming that stolen moment into something it can wield in the dream realm. For those who encounter the dream thief in this way, the loss is almost imperceptible. It's not the jarring sensation of waking from a vivid dream, but rather the absence of a journey that never began. It's the space where a dream could have been, stolen in the quiet moments before it even took shape. And the dream thief? It moves on, leaving no trace, no evidence of what was taken. Only a hollow sense of something missing, too vague to even put into words. The dream thief doesn't easily fit into the idea of good or evil. It operates in a space where morality isn't clearly defined, and its actions are driven by something deeper than a simple desire to cause harm. It doesn't steal dreams out of malice or cruelty, but rather out of a compulsion, almost as if it's bound by forces beyond its own control. In many ways, the thief is more like a force of nature than a villain, something that exists because it has to, not because it chooses to. It takes dreams the way a storm takes branches from a tree, or the tide pulls away the sand. There's no hatred or wickedness in its actions, just an inevitability. At the same time, the dream thief isn't without a sense of purpose. It operates under a set of rules, though those rules aren't written in any book or passed down through any moral code. They're more like the natural laws of the dream realm, laws the thief follows instinctively. It doesn't steal every dream or torment every sleeper. There's a balance, a rhythm to what it takes and what it leaves behind. Some dreams are left untouched, while others are plucked with care, as if the thief knows which ones it needs and which can remain. It's selective, never random, following patterns only it can understand. The thief's motives aren't entirely selfish either. In some ways, it sees itself as a keeper of balance, ensuring that dreams don't spill over into chaos or overwhelm the dreamer. By taking certain dreams, it might even be sparing the dreamer from a nightmare too intense to handle, or a revelation they aren't ready to face. It's a guardian of the dream world in its own way, though its methods are far from gentle. It doesn't ask permission, doesn't explain its choices, but there's a strange, cold logic to its actions. The dream thief isn't kind, but neither is it cruel. If anything, it operates on a plane where human concepts of right and wrong don't fully apply. It doesn't seek to destroy, but rather to maintain its existence in a realm where survival is its own kind of rule. The dreams it steals are a means to an end, not the result of a moral failure. To the thief, the act of taking dreams is as natural as breathing. It doesn't question why it does what it does. It simply follows its nature, bound to a set of principles we might never fully understand. And in that sense, it transcends the idea of evil, becoming something far more complex. Neither good nor bad, just a part of the dream world's strange, shifting fabric. When the dream thief takes a nightmare, it complicates the question of whether it's a villain, a hero, or something in between. Stealing a nightmare could be seen as an act of mercy, sparing the dreamer from the torment that would have unfolded. In those moments, the thief almost seems like a reluctant protector, taking something dark and unsettling and keeping it from reaching the dreamer. But even in these acts, it doesn't present itself as a hero. There's no grand gesture or noble intention behind the theft. It's simply doing what it's always done, operating in the shadows, taking what it needs to survive. In a way, this gives the thief an anti-hero quality. It doesn't fit the mold of a savior, yet its actions can unintentionally shield people from their worst fears. The dreamer never knows what's been taken, only that they wake up without the memory of a nightmare. There's no gratitude because the protection is silent, unnoticed, and the thief doesn't do it for praise or recognition. It's indifferent to the dreamer's experience, caring only about the raw potential of the nightmare itself, which can be just as powerful as a pleasant dream. Yet the outcome is still beneficial to the person who would have lived through the terror of that dream. But that doesn't make the dream thief a hero in any conventional sense. It's not driven by a desire to do good. In fact, it likely doesn't consider the dreamer at all. The nightmare is valuable for what it can provide, for the energy or potential it holds, not for the relief it gives the dreamer. If the thief happens to prevent someone from experiencing fear or despair, it's a side effect, not the goal. The thief isn't rescuing anyone. It's simply taking what fits into its own strange code of survival and balance. This puts the dream thief in a space between hero and villain, occupying a gray area where its actions can have unintended positive effects without being rooted in altruism. It may save people from nightmares, but it doesn't wear that role like a badge. There's no moral high ground, no sense of righting wrongs, just a creature following its own nature, blurring the lines between protector and predator. It's not evil for the sake of being evil, but it's certainly not a hero with a heart of gold. The dream thief is simply it, a being that does what it must, indifferent to how it's seen, but in its own way, perhaps leaving the world a little less dark. Someone could choose to give their dreams to the dream thief, but such a choice carries weight beyond what they might initially understand. Offering up a dream isn't like giving away a possession. It's a surrender of something deeply personal, a part of the self that exists beyond the conscious mind. The moment someone willingly hands over their dreams, they lose more than just the fleeting images and emotions that fill their sleep. They lose pieces of their inner world, those moments of reflection, imagination, and subconscious exploration that shape who they are, even in ways they can't fully grasp. To give a dream willingly is to invite the dream thief into your most private, unguarded space, a place where you have no control over what happens next. The dreamer might think they're exchanging something insignificant, a single dream or a few harmless fragments of their imagination. But dreams aren't isolated moments. They're connected to deeper layers of thought, emotion, and memory. By giving up one, they risk losing the threads that tie their dreams to their waking life. It's as if a part of their mind goes dark, a quiet emptiness where creativity once bloomed. For the dream thief, this voluntary surrender might be a rare and intriguing event. It's used to taking dreams without permission, slipping into the subconscious unnoticed. But when someone willingly gives their dreams, the exchange becomes something more deliberate, a kind of pact. The implications for the dreamer are profound. Once they've given up their dreams, they may find it harder to dream at all, as if the act of surrender has created a barrier between them and the dream world. Night after night, they could wake feeling incomplete, as though something is missing, yet unable to place what it is. Even their waking mind might be affected, losing its sharpness, its spark, as if their creativity and intuition have dulled. At the same time, there's a strange appeal to this choice. To some, giving up their dreams could feel like freedom, an escape from nightmares or unwanted thoughts. But it's a dangerous trade. Without dreams, they lose a vital connection to themselves, to the unfiltered truths their mind tries to show them in the quiet of night. And the dream thief? It doesn't care whether the dreams are given freely or stolen in silence. The result is the same: a dream absorbed, transformed, and taken out of reach forever. The dreamer may think they've made a small sacrifice, but the cost is far greater than they realize. It's not just about the dream they give. It's about the piece of themselves that goes with it, leaving a void they may never fill again. Those who oppose the dream thief are not warriors in the traditional sense. They are often people who have glimpsed its presence, felt the hollow emptiness it leaves behind, and come to understand what has been taken. They're not chosen by fate or bound by some ancient prophecy. Instead, they are individuals who have experienced the loss of something vital, whether it be a dream that held the key to their deepest desires, or a nightmare that they needed to confront to find peace. These opponents are quiet, patient, and relentless in their pursuit, driven not by vengeance, but by the desire to reclaim what was stolen from them and protect others from falling into the same void. Among these opponents are dreamers with a heightened awareness of their own subconscious. These are the lucid dreamers, those who can navigate their dreamscapes with intention, controlling their dreams in a way most people can't. They've encountered the dream thief in the vast, shifting realms of their own mind and learned to recognize its presence, even when it hides in the corners of their dreams. For them, stopping the dream thief isn't about brute force, but about confronting it where it's most vulnerable, in the dream world. They learn to strengthen their mental defenses, weaving their dreams in ways that confuse or repel the thief, creating landscapes too intricate or emotions too raw for it to easily take. But there are others, those who don't merely want to fend off the dream thief. They want to stop it entirely. They believe there's a way to disrupt the thief's power at its source, to sever its connection to the dream realm. These people often work in secret, studying ancient texts and forgotten lore about dreams and the subconscious. They search for clues in the fragmented stories passed down through generations, tales of beings that once roamed the dream world but were bound or destroyed by knowledge long forgotten. They believe that the dream thief, like those entities, can be weakened, maybe even trapped. Their plan is delicate and dangerous. It involves more than just confronting the dream thief in a single dream. They must find a way to enter its realm, the space between dreams where the thief retreats with its stolen prizes. But this realm is elusive, hidden from even the most skilled dreamers. To reach it, they would need to navigate the dreams of others, following the thief's trail through countless minds, piecing together its path like a puzzle. It's a journey that requires not just skill, but an almost unnatural connection to the dream world itself. And even if they find this hidden place, they face an enemy that is not bound by the rules of time or space. The dream thief doesn't fear the waking world, nor does it obey the logic of the dreamscape. Stopping it will require an understanding of dreams far beyond what any one person can possess. Still, these opponents continue their quiet rebellion, not because they believe they will easily succeed, but because they can't let the dream thief continue its silent theft. For them, it's not just about protecting their own dreams, but about defending the unspoken sanctity of the dream world itself. They know that dreams are more than just fleeting fantasies. They are windows into the soul, pathways to understanding, and without them, the world becomes a little less human, a little less real. And so, they press on, determined to stop a force that moves without remorse, one stolen dream at a time. The dream thief isn't easily swayed by negotiation, and yet, there are moments when it seems to hesitate, as if some spark of understanding flickers within its cold, relentless nature. It's not that it can be reasoned with in the way you might negotiate with a person, offering a trade, pleading for mercy, or making a deal. The thief doesn't respond to the usual enticements of power or compassion. It exists beyond the reach of human emotion, driven by something more primal, more instinctual. It moves with a purpose, one that doesn't need approval or permission. Still, in rare instances, those who've encountered the dream thief in their most vulnerable moments have felt a strange connection, a pause in its usually methodical actions. This brief flicker of understanding, though, is not rooted in any moral code or sense of empathy. The dream thief doesn't seem to want anything from the dreamer beyond the dream itself, and perhaps that's where the possibility of negotiation lies. Those who have tried to communicate with it don't speak to it as they would a human being. They engage with the essence of what the thief represents. They confront it not with words, but with the raw power of their own dreams, offering it something beyond what it came to take. It's not a negotiation in the traditional sense, but more of an unspoken exchange, a dance between predator and prey. Some dreamers, aware of the thief's presence, have attempted to offer up decoy dreams. Dreams so vivid, so enticing, that the thief becomes momentarily captivated. These are dreamers who've learned to create dreams that shimmer with such emotional intensity that they confuse the thief's sense of purpose. In these moments, the thief may take the decoy instead of the dream it originally sought, leaving the dreamer's true, hidden dreams intact. It's a risky strategy, but for those who understand the nature of the dream world, it's sometimes enough to keep the thief at bay, at least for a while. But this form of negotiation doesn't guarantee safety, nor does it suggest that the dream thief has any conscious desire to strike bargains. It's more like offering something to a storm, hoping that the wind will shift its course. The thief may take what's offered and leave, but it's just as likely to return, drawn once again by the unspoken pull of the dreamer's subconscious. There's no lasting truce to be made, no peace to be found, because the dream thief doesn't operate on human terms. It doesn't bargain because it doesn't need to. It knows that dreams are endless, and sooner or later, it will find what it's looking for. For those who've tried to negotiate, the implications are profound. They may save their dreams for a time, but they live with the constant knowledge that the thief will always be out there, lurking at the edges of their sleep, waiting for the moment when their guard is down. It's not a matter of if the thief will return, but when. And in that sense, the dream thief is more like a force of nature than a conscious being, an inevitable presence that can be delayed, but never truly stopped. Negotiation, if it can be called that, is a fleeting reprieve in a game where the thief always holds the upper hand. Within the dream, where reality bends and perception becomes fluid, there exists a way to outsmart the dream thief, though it demands more than just cleverness. It requires understanding the nature of dreams themselves. The dream thief, elusive and cunning, feeds on the subconscious, slipping through thoughts, stealing fragments of imagination. But the dreamer holds an advantage, even if unaware of it at first. The dream is their domain, no matter how distorted it becomes. At its core, dreams are projections of the dreamer's own mind, a reflection of their fears, desires, and memories. The dream thief may seem to dominate, but it is still an intruder in a space that responds to the dreamer's will, even if that will is not always conscious. Outsmarting the dream thief, then, is not a matter of brute force or direct confrontation but subtlety, turning the thief's own tactics against them. The dreamer must first become aware, lucid, realizing they are in the dream. This recognition allows them to take control, at least partially, shaping the environment in ways the dream thief cannot anticipate. Imagine a person trapped in a dream where the dream thief is lurking in the shadows, plucking ideas and memories as though stealing pages from a book. The instinct might be to run, to hide, to protect what remains. But the dreamer, if they pause and understand that the thief thrives on their fear, can flip the situation. Instead of fleeing, they might create a maze within the dream, a labyrinth built from their own imagination, so intricate that the dream thief loses track of which thoughts are real and which are decoys. The dreamer, while guiding the thief through this mental maze, might leave fragments of false memories, echoing events that never happened or emotions tied to nothing substantial. The thief, distracted by this feast of illusions, becomes tangled in the dreamer's own creations. The key is not to fight but to mislead, to craft a dreamscape so unpredictable that even the dream thief cannot distinguish between what is real and what is an illusion. At the same time, the dreamer can gather strength from memories of those they trust, loved ones whose presence is so powerful that it creates an anchor within the dream. By focusing on these emotional ties, the dreamer builds a fortress, not of walls, but of deep connections that the dream thief cannot sever. It's in this emotional grounding that the dreamer finds protection. The thief, drawn to superficial desires and fleeting thoughts, becomes frustrated when faced with something as deep and unshakable as love or loyalty. In the end, outsmarting the dream thief is not about overpowering it, but about understanding the balance between chaos and control within a dream. It's about weaving a narrative so compelling that the thief becomes a prisoner of the very dream they sought to exploit. If the dream thief encountered someone with no dreams to steal, the encounter would be disorienting, almost like a predator suddenly finding itself in an empty forest with no prey. The thief, used to weaving through vivid landscapes of imagination, memories, and hidden fears, would be met with a void, a vast, unsettling silence. For a being that thrives on the intricate complexity of the subconscious, this absence would be suffocating in its simplicity. The human element here becomes fascinating. For the person with no dreams, whether due to trauma, apathy, or perhaps even a deeply cultivated inner stillness, the lack of mental noise offers something neither the dream thief nor even they themselves may fully understand, a kind of immunity. Without the swirling thoughts, the unresolved anxieties, or the lingering desires that typically fuel dreams, the person becomes a blank canvas. Yet, it's not a blankness that the thief can manipulate or extract value from. It's like trying to plunder a vault, only to find that it's not only empty, but never had anything inside in the first place. From the dream thief's perspective, this would be profoundly unsettling. The thief is not just a scavenger, but a creature that feeds on the mind's vulnerable states. Encountering someone devoid of dreams is like being faced with an impenetrable barrier, one that is not constructed out of strength or resilience, but out of sheer absence. In that absence, there is nothing for the thief to latch onto, no threads of consciousness to unravel. It would feel disarmed, powerless, and for a being that exists to siphon the life of the mind, this void would be akin to drowning in a place without air or substance. For the dreamless individual, this encounter may pass unnoticed. They might sleep through the night, untouched, unbothered by the entity that lingers on the edge of their subconscious. But there's something haunting about it. The dream thief is accustomed to being the one who dominates, yet here, it is the thief that becomes the lost one, like a shadow unable to cast itself without the presence of light. The person with no dreams to steal is untouchable not because of any force of will, but because there is nothing to take. They are, in a sense, already beyond the reach of the thief's grasp, and the encounter becomes more of an eerie stalemate, with the dream thief retreating, hollow, from a mind that offers nothing to be consumed. The dream thief could symbolize the slow, creeping erosion of things that feel essential to the human spirit: hope, creativity, or even a sense of personal identity. In real life, these aren't always stolen in a sudden, violent way, but rather drained over time, often without us noticing until we feel their absence. The dream thief represents that quiet, insidious process, the way life's pressures, disappointments, or anxieties can subtly strip away parts of ourselves that once felt vibrant and alive. Imagine the feeling of waking up one day and realizing that the passion you once had for something is gone. It didn't disappear in a single moment. It just slipped away gradually, as though stolen in fragments by an invisible force. The dream thief is a reflection of that. It's the embodiment of the fear that, through the grind of daily life, we might lose what makes us feel truly human. The thief doesn't attack with obvious brutality but works in the shadows, taking a little piece of your imagination one night and a bit of your confidence the next. Over time, you might start to feel as though your dreams, both literal and metaphorical, are no longer yours. In the case of creativity, the dream thief could represent the fear of losing the ability to create, to imagine new worlds or ideas. It's that sense of waking up one morning and realizing the spark you used to rely on is gone. There's a hollowness in knowing that what once flowed so naturally now feels blocked, as if something has siphoned it away, leaving you feeling empty and uninspired. In this way, the dream thief is a stand-in for the internal or external forces that drain your creative energy, whether it's the weight of responsibilities, societal expectations, or self-doubt. When it comes to personal identity, the dream thief might symbolize the fear that life's circumstances can strip away who you thought you were. Identity is something we build, consciously or unconsciously, and yet, over time, we can feel it slipping away. The thief creeps in, not necessarily in dramatic moments, but through the everyday erosion of self. Maybe it's through compromising too often, or by losing track of what makes you unique while trying to fit into the expectations placed on you. The dream thief, in this sense, symbolizes the fear of waking up one day and feeling like you no longer recognize yourself in the mirror, as if the essence of who you are has been quietly stolen without your knowledge. Ultimately, the dream thief embodies the anxiety that the things we cherish most, the dreams, the creativity, the sense of self, can be lost, not in one sweeping moment of tragedy, but in the subtle, almost imperceptible process of life itself. It's not the fear of being overtaken by something external, but rather the fear that what's most precious can be taken from within, leaving you with only the faint echo of what used to be. The dream thief can be seen as a powerful metaphor for self-doubt or internal sabotage, that part of ourselves that quietly undermines our own dreams and aspirations. It's not an external enemy, but rather something that lives within us, whispering the kinds of thoughts that make us question our worth, our abilities, and the validity of our desires. The thief doesn't storm in and steal outright. Instead, it waits for moments of vulnerability, sowing seeds of uncertainty that slowly chip away at our confidence. Imagine someone on the verge of a significant decision, one that could change the course of their life. They have a vision of what they want, a clear path forward, but then the voice of the dream thief creeps in. It says, "Are you sure you're good enough for this? Or what if you fail?" This isn't the voice of reason or careful planning, but one rooted in fear, eroding the person's belief in their ability to succeed. Over time, the dream becomes smaller, more distant, and less attainable. Not because it was impossible from the start, but because self-doubt has subtly dismantled it from within. This internal sabotage is often invisible until it's too late, like a slow leak in a ship that eventually leads to sinking. The dream thief, in this sense, is the part of us that internalizes external criticism or failure, magnifying it until it seems to be the only voice we hear. It can make us forget the moments when we were bold, creative, or fearless, replacing those memories with a narrative that we aren't enough. What's particularly insidious about the thief is that it disguises itself as truth. It convinces us that the doubts are justified, that the fears are real, even when they're not. And in doing so, it robs us of the courage to chase after what we once believed was possible. But what makes the dream thief so deeply personal is that it operates within the confines of our own minds. Unlike an external obstacle, which can be confronted head-on, this form of sabotage is harder to recognize. It can masquerade as caution or practicality, but in reality, it's driven by insecurity. We often don't realize the damage it's doing until we find ourselves standing in the ruins of the dreams we abandoned, not because they were out of reach, but because we doubted our ability to grasp them. In a very human way, the dream thief symbolizes those moments when we are our own worst enemy, the times when fear of failure or rejection holds us back. It's that internal force that prevents us from taking risks, stepping outside of our comfort zones, or believing that we deserve more. And while it may seem like the thief is protecting us from disappointment or failure, it's really just ensuring that we never reach our full potential. The real theft isn't of the dream itself, but of the belief that we could ever make it real. If the dream thief suddenly stopped stealing dreams, the world might not notice at first, but there would be a subtle shift, like the quiet removal of a weight no one had realized they were carrying. People would wake up feeling different, as if something unspoken had been returned to them. It wouldn't be dramatic, no flashes of insight or bursts of brilliance. Instead, it would be the slow realization that the heaviness hanging over their dreams had lifted, allowing them to exist more fully, more vividly. For those whose dreams had once been stolen, their nights might become more colorful, more alive. The vivid landscapes of their imagination, which had been dimmed by the gradual erosion of their thoughts, would begin to rebuild. There would be a deeper connection between what people experienced in their dreams and how they felt when they woke. Without the quiet interference of the dream thief, fragments of creativity, hope, and possibility would remain intact, instead of slipping away into the recesses of forgotten sleep. The real change, though, would come during the day. Without the dream thief feeding on their subconscious fears, doubts, and hopes, people might feel more attuned to their inner worlds. The delicate balance between night and day would shift, with more of their dreams. Both the aspirations they harbor in their waking hours and the ones that play out in sleep, staying with them. No longer stripped of the intangible ideas and passions that fuel their desires, people would feel an increase in clarity. They would remember the moments of boldness that had once been snatched away before they could fully grasp them. In the broader world, creativity would likely surge. Artists, writers, and thinkers would find themselves waking up with ideas they hadn't fully understood the night before, now blossoming in their minds with a sense of completeness. It's not that the dream thief had stolen everything, but without its constant, subtle siphoning, those half-formed thoughts and brilliant, fleeting glimpses of possibility would have a chance to settle, to take root and grow. Inspiration would flow more freely, as though the fog had cleared from over a vast field of untapped potential. For others, the absence of the dream thief would mean a shift in their emotional landscapes. The anxieties and insecurities that had once been amplified by the thief's quiet presence would lose their edge. People might find themselves more connected to their own desires, less haunted by the doubts that once whispered to them in the quiet moments of the night. It wouldn't mean the end of self-doubt or fear, but those feelings would feel more like their own, something they could confront head-on, rather than an intangible force feeding off their inner turmoil. The world, in a way, would feel a little more grounded, as though the invisible tether that had always kept humanity just a step removed from its dreams had finally snapped. Dreams would no longer slip through fingers like sand, and in their wake, people would feel more capable of holding onto their hopes, of manifesting their imagination in the waking world. The change wouldn't be in grand, obvious gestures, but in the quiet moments, the slow build of confidence, the rekindling of a forgotten passion, the ability to trust one's own dreams without the fear of them being taken away. It would be a world more connected to its own subconscious, a place where the barrier between what is imagined and what is possible becomes just a little thinner. A person with extraordinary dreams, someone like a prophet or visionary, could indeed attract the dream thief more than others, almost like a beacon in the night that draws attention simply by its brilliance. These individuals carry within them something rare. Dreams that aren't just personal or fleeting, but that seem to stretch beyond the confines of their own mind, touching on something universal, something deeper. Their dreams are vivid and complex, filled with symbols and meanings that ripple outward, shaping not only their own future but the futures of those around them. For the dream thief, these dreams would be irresistible. The allure lies in the richness of these dreams. A visionary's mind doesn't just process the everyday fragments of life. It crafts landscapes of possibility, layered with insights and revelations that can shape entire beliefs or movements. The dream thief, always hunting for dreams full of meaning and potential, would find these extraordinary dreams especially tempting. It's not just about the vividness of the dreams but their power, the weight they carry within the human consciousness. A prophet's dream might offer glimpses into the unknown, whispers of truth that transcend time. And for the dream thief, such dreams are more than just mental nourishment. They are a source of power. For the person experiencing these extraordinary dreams, the constant attention of the dream thief would be felt subtly, as if something was always lurking at the edges of their sleep, waiting to take what they had seen. Imagine the frustration of waking from a dream that seemed to hold the answers to life's biggest questions, only to find that it had slipped away, stolen by a force that understood its importance even before they did. Over time, the visionary might feel as though their gift is being drained, the clarity of their visions clouded by the thief's influence. And yet, there is a duality to it. The dream thief's presence might also sharpen the dreamer's resolve. Knowing that their dreams are a target, the prophet or visionary might fight harder to hold on to them, cultivating a deeper connection with their subconscious in an attempt to protect what is theirs. The more the thief tries to steal, the more fiercely the dreamer might cling to the meaning they've extracted from their dreams. This tug-of-war would shape their relationship with their own mind, forcing them to become more attuned to the boundaries between waking life and the dream world. In a sense, The visionary struggle with the dream thief could even deepen the significance of their dreams. The act of protecting and retaining the dreams would make each one feel more precious, as if surviving the thief's attempts to steal them only amplifies their importance. The person would become acutely aware of the fragility of their visions and how easily they can be lost, but also of their resilience in the face of that constant threat. Ultimately, someone with extraordinary dreams would be both a target and a survivor of the dream thief's attention. Their dreams, rich in meaning and full of possibility, would make them an irresistible draw for the thief. But the very nature of those dreams might also make them more difficult to steal entirely. It would be a constant battle, a test of will and awareness, where the dreamer learns to protect the essence of their visions even as they're being pursued by a force that seeks to strip them away. When the dream thief encounters a lucid dreamer, the dynamic shifts dramatically. The thief, accustomed to moving through dreams unnoticed, like a shadow that manipulates without resistance, suddenly finds itself in a landscape where it's not just observed but confronted. A lucid dreamer, someone who has the awareness and control to shape their dream world, isn't an easy target. In this encounter, the balance of power tilts in unexpected ways, and the dream thief would sense it immediately. For the lucid dreamer, the moment they become aware of the dream thief's presence, they can do something most dreamers can't: react. Unlike the typical dreamer, who passively experiences the dream as if it were unfolding on its own, the lucid dreamer can bend the rules of that world. They might transform the dreamscape at will, turning fear into strength or shifting the very environment in which they and the thief exist. The thief, which thrives on the vulnerability of those unaware of its influence, suddenly loses its advantage. The dreamer, with full command of their surroundings, can change the narrative, manipulating the dream in ways that make the thief's task infinitely more difficult. The dream thief, in this scenario, is no longer the silent manipulator. It becomes a character in the dream, exposed to the dreamer's will. It would feel trapped, perhaps for the first time, as the lucid dreamer could decide to confront it head-on. The dreamer might turn the tables, chasing the thief through the corridors of their own subconscious, twisting the dream world in ways that disorient or weaken it. The power of the lucid dreamer lies not just in awareness, but in the ability to reshape the boundaries of the dream itself, making it a shifting, unpredictable realm for the thief to navigate. For the thief, encountering a lucid dreamer would be deeply unsettling. Dreams, after all, are the thief's playground, places where it steals freely, feeding on the minds of those lost in the rhythm of sleep. But with a lucid dreamer, the terrain becomes unfamiliar. The thief is no longer the hunter, but the hunted, and the lucid dreamer has the ability to dictate the terms of the encounter. They might force the thief into the open, demanding answers, or even creating barriers within the dream to trap it. The control that the lucid dreamer exerts turns the dream into a maze where the thief's usual methods don't apply. But more than that, the encounter becomes a test of wills. Lucid dreamers are aware of their fears, their desires, and their insecurities in ways that most dreamers aren't. They possess a unique self-awareness that can be weaponized within the dream. The dream thief, which relies on exploiting those very vulnerabilities, finds itself facing a dreamer who not only sees their inner landscape clearly but can manipulate it to defend against any intrusion. The lucid dreamer, fully awake within their own dream, is both creator and protector of their inner world, leaving little room for the thief to operate. In this encounter, the dream thief would likely retreat, recognizing that it no longer holds the power. The lucid dreamer's control would render the thief ineffective. A mere observer in a dream it can no longer influence. It would slink back into the shadows, realizing that it cannot steal what the dreamer is fully aware of, what the dreamer already owns. And for the lucid dreamer, this encounter would solidify their sense of control, deepening their connection to the dream world and affirming their ability to confront whatever comes from within or outside. The dream thief, once a figure of silent dominance, becomes nothing more than a fading presence, outmatched by the dreamer's command of their own subconscious. If the dream thief ever found its way into the waking world, its influence over reality would be subtle but insidious, weaving itself into the fabric of daily life in ways that are difficult to recognize at first. Unlike the dream world, where its presence is fleeting and hidden, in the waking world the thief would operate through emotions, thoughts, and the delicate balance between hope and despair. It wouldn't have the power to steal dreams in the literal sense, but it would know how to erode them in more tangible ways, slowly unraveling the ambitions and desires people carry with them during the day. In this world, the thief's power would lie in its ability to plant doubts and twist perceptions, It wouldn't need to strip away dreams in a dramatic or obvious way. Instead, it would quietly insert itself into moments of vulnerability, amplifying the self-doubt that already exists in people's minds. A person might wake up inspired, with plans for something bold, but as they move through the day, the dream thief would whisper subtle questions. What if you fail? Or, is this really worth it? Over time, that voice would become louder, not enough to be noticed as an outside force, but just strong enough to shift the course of a person's thoughts. The thief's influence wouldn't just target lofty ambitions or artistic dreams, but also the everyday hopes that keep people moving forward, the plans to improve, to change, to take risks. A person might feel the weight of its presence in those quiet moments when they hesitate, when they decide not to pursue something they want because the doubt becomes too overwhelming. The thief would feed on hesitation, turning minor uncertainties into barriers that seem impossible to overcome. It would turn the smallest failure into a reason to abandon a goal entirely, nurturing the fear that it's safer to stay in the comfort of what's known, rather than risk the unknown. As its influence spreads, the dream thief would cultivate a world where people become disconnected from their potential. Creativity would still exist, but it would feel distant, like a memory that can't quite be grasped. Those who once dreamed of changing their lives or the world around them would find themselves stagnating, unsure of why they no longer feel the fire they once had. The thief wouldn't take their dreams in the way it does in sleep, but it would drain the energy and belief behind them, making even the most passionate person question their own path. In relationships, the dream thief's presence could manifest as a growing sense of isolation. It would turn intimate connections into places where doubt festers, making people second-guess each other's intentions, feeding into misunderstandings and eroding trust. The dreams people have for their personal lives, for love, for building something meaningful with others, would feel more fragile, more prone to being shattered by unspoken fears or insecurities. The thief wouldn't destroy these connections outright, but it would fray the edges, making everything feel more precarious, more susceptible to failure. In this reality, the dream thief's true power wouldn't be in stealing dreams outright, but in draining the will to pursue them. It would be a force that makes life feel less vibrant, where the joy of imagining new possibilities slowly gives way to the grind of practicality and survival. People would still dream, but those dreams would lose their vibrancy, their color. They would be there, but more distant, more like hazy mirages than tangible possibilities. The world would continue, but with a quiet heaviness, as if something essential had been lost. In its wake, the dream thief would leave a world that's still functional, but lacking in the kind of passion and belief that propels people toward greatness. It would be a world where the extraordinary feels unreachable, where doubt becomes the constant companion of every ambition. The dreams wouldn't disappear entirely, but they would feel out of reach, like something that was once alive but now lingers only in the corners of memory, untouchable and slowly fading. If two dream thieves encountered each other, the meeting would not be a simple confrontation or alliance, but something more complex and uneasy. Their existence revolves around secrecy, a quiet feeding on the dreams of others, and to meet another of their kind would force them to acknowledge something they perhaps had never considered: that they aren't the only one, that there are others like them prowling the edges of human consciousness. The recognition alone would create tension, like two predators eyeing each other over scarce prey. In that first moment, they might hesitate, each trying to assess the other's intentions. The nature of dream thieves is rooted in their solitary existence, accustomed to being the only presence in someone's subconscious, the one unseen force controlling the flow of dreams. To suddenly encounter another like them would feel like a disruption, as if the natural order had been broken. It's likely that a kind of silent competition would begin immediately, not out of pure aggression, but because their instinct is to consume, to take. They wouldn't know how to share the same territory because they've never needed to. But this competition wouldn't be physical or even openly confrontational. Instead, it would play out on a deeper, more psychological level. Each dream thief would try to outmaneuver the other, slipping through the layers of dreams to claim the most vivid and powerful ones for themselves. It would be a battle fought in shadows, both trying to steal before the other can, a quiet race for the richest dreams, where neither is ever fully aware of the other's strategy. They wouldn't engage directly because their strength lies in remaining hidden, even from each other. The tension would build as they silently vie for dominance, both trying to claim more, as if the very existence of the other made the dreams more scarce, more precious. However, there's also the possibility that, over time, they might recognize the futility of constant competition. The nature of dreams is vast and ever-flowing, an endless supply, and two dream thieves might realize that if they keep battling each other, neither of them can thrive. An unspoken understanding could form between them, not an alliance in the traditional sense, but a kind of truce. They might carve out their own territories, or agree to take turns, both understanding that they could achieve more by avoiding direct conflict. This wouldn't be a friendly partnership, but more of a mutual recognition of their shared hunger and need to survive. Even in this uneasy truce, trust would be impossible. Dream thieves are creatures of betrayal, of taking what isn't theirs, and so even if they managed to coexist, they would always be watching each other, waiting for the other to break the agreement. The tension between them would never fully disappear, like two wolves circling the same prey, never quite at ease. They might even play with each other's minds, setting traps within dreams, testing the boundaries of the truce, looking for weaknesses. It would be a fragile peace, always on the verge of shattering, always teetering between rivalry and necessity. Yet, despite the competition, there would also be a strange sense of recognition. Each dream thief would understand the other in a way no one else could. They share the same dark purpose, the same drive to feed on the subconscious of others, and in that, there might be a quiet respect. It's a lonely existence, and meeting another like them would force them to confront their own nature. They might learn from each other, adapting their techniques, becoming sharper and more efficient in their thefts. In that sense, they would push each other to be more dangerous, more cunning. So, while they might avoid open conflict, the presence of another dream thief would inevitably change them both. Their shared hunger would drive them to be more ruthless, more precise, as they tried to protect their own territory while eyeing the others. They wouldn't form an alliance in the traditional sense, but their relationship would be one of constant tension, two beings bound by the same dark need, circling each other in an endless dance of suspicion and unspoken understanding. Thank you for journeying with me into the shadowy world of the dream thief. Whether it's a force of chaos, a misunderstood being, or something that lurks in the deepest corners of our imagination, one thing is certain: dreams shape us. The loss of them, well, that's a mystery we may never want to face. If you found yourself lost in thought, intrigued, or even just a little more curious about the power of dreams, don't forget to leave a like. Your support is what keeps Quiet Universe growing and dreaming. And if you're ready for more explorations into the unknown, or if you dare to dream with me again, hit that subscribe button. Who knows what other mysteries might be waiting just around the corner. Until next time, dream well and stay curious.